Hello, Jordan.
What's up, Michael?
Go ahead.
No, I don't have a J. I don't have anything to J. I was You J'd it today? What do you got?
I told you I was going to, and you said, not if I can J it first. And I said, hey, it's not a competition. You can speak first, and I'll go second.
Yeah, I know. But then I forgot about what I was going to J it on. From the past 2 days, there were two different things that I said I was going to J it on, and I just forget. We spoke about them on my runs.
Yeah, while you were running. I know both of yours, and I know mine.
All right, so you win. Well, let's go with yours.
I am, you know how the term these days, I don't know if this is still being used, but journey or like phase.
Oh yeah, like a fitness journey or a phase. Okay.
I am in my
fiber journey.
No, that was short-lived. I am in my baggy hoodie and sweatpants while working out phase.
Oh, nice.
And I don't know how long-lived it will be because it's uncomfortable. Like, I don't like that level of heat during my workouts, but I'm gonna roll with it as long as I possibly can.
What got you into this part of your phase journey?
A spiritual awakening.
Okay. I like that.
Historically, I have, and you have, and we together on this podcast have a number of times been overt in our criticism of over-sexualization of women specifically in the gym. And like basically the very, very, very small segment of women who dress completely slutty in commercial gyms. And it's like, come on, like why do we need to do this? However, and I think that was just I personally associated that virtue of modesty with women exclusively, when in reality, I think we would all benefit from less vanity, less ego, less of that type of behavior, and dudes alike. And I don't know. Remember how we would talk about how I didn't like the positive feedback of social media?
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember.
I have started to not like positive attention of my physique from both sexes. Because like dudes are like, oh, it's so cool that you're jacked or whatever. And then like, you know, I'm married, but like women, like any kind of positive attention around physique and like pumped, and I don't want any of it. It's all bad. And so I'm going full baggy hoodie, sweatpants, workout, not a pump cover, not like I'm going to take this off once I'm in the middle of my workout. Like I am,
you're covered head to toe.
What's the guy's name? This isn't a time for a joke, Jordan. What's the guy's name?
I don't know.
200 pounds is always 200 pounds.
Oh, Henry Rollins.
Yeah. I'm going full Henry Rollins, not even looking at the physique. There's an element of this that's like prime peak JP 2017, 2018 said something along the lines, giving advice to young men on how to be in the world. It was essentially like, be attractive to all, but choose one. And he was making an argument from like an evolutionary biology perspective that because women are the gatekeepers of sex, and that is what it keeps the species alive, that it could be argued that an optimal way to live would be one that like makes you attractive to many, but then choosing one is the virtue, not indulging in the, you know, the hedonic pleasure of sleeping with everyone you could, but rather choosing one and being committed. There's some kind of parallel here with be strong, be aesthetic, be like train hard, do all these positive things, but don't do them for the positive feedback that you would get. Instead, do the right thing, but then don't let anyone see it.
Not even yourself.
I mean, yeah, like I have mirrors in my bathroom and I'm not going to not shower, like showering clothes.
Well, no, but like you're not even like when you're working out, you're not looking at your own muscles. Like you're just
right.
like, you're covered up. It's not just because of other people. It's also for yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, let's focus on just doing the right thing because it's the right thing, not because of the ego that I can get from myself.
Yeah. And there's a cool element of, I don't know. I think I'm making very slight technique variations on certain movements based on feel rather than looking at how it is. And this is a complete aside from the actual purpose, but on like an alternating underhand grip dumbbell curl, I think there's something different about my like elbow position and like the finishing position of where my pinky is relative to my thumb at the top of the move, because I'm not looking at it and trying to do anything. I'm going pure bicep squeeze, like mind muscle. There's something interesting there too. But
Yeah.
at a higher level, I think that this is just what I'm feeling right now in our somewhat or very degenerate culture. Like, I think that this is the proper way forward until I can no longer withstand the heat of these workouts, or maybe for the rest of my life. That would be incredible.
Is it really uncomfortable for you? Like the heat is too uncomfortable?
Nah, I almost get claustrophobic.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what are you wearing? You're wearing sweatpants and sweatshirt? That's what you're wearing when you work out? Yeah. Hoodie up? Is the hood over the top?
No.
No.
I would
That'd
like
be
to
real
from a coolness
overheat.
perspective, but yeah,
I like it, dude. So you've been getting a lot of attention from both men and women about how good you look? Everyone's just like, geez. You go in the gym or everyone's like, oh my God.
It's this is just the way forward. This is the proper way forward.
I like it. That's good. I like that a lot. You know, I know, and you know, we've spoken about this, but just in case, because I feel like we've been getting a bunch of new listeners, and people who don't.
Jordan's going to contextualize the last 6 minutes for you.
No. Because I think if someone just hears it and they've never heard it before, they're gonna be like, "Wait, what do you mean women are the gatekeepers of sex?" They don't understand. They're like, "What does that mean?" Could you just talk about that? Like, what does that actually mean? Because I think someone might hear that and then just be like, "Oh my God, that's misogynistic," but it's actually like the opposite. It's like it explains how so much of evolution has worked. Do you want to just talk about that for a second for someone who maybe has not heard that before?
Why don't you explain what it means, Jordan?
A very basic one that we can all realize is like, if a guy wants to have sex, then it's not like he can just at any point in time, like, okay, I want this to happen, it's going to happen. I can't just go to a bar and definitively make that happen. But if a woman wants to have sex, like, she could basically, no matter what, find some guy who's going to have sex with her, like, without question. It's relatively easy. Basically, the woman gets to decide, barring like being physically like raped, right? Like being like actually like getting someone actually taken advantage of. Assuming it's consensual, the woman gets to decide if you're going to have sex. So that's
Correct.
what it means. Like, women are the gatekeepers, where it's like the woman chooses who she's going to be with. And there's, I think a lot of people will look at like the most successful men, the men who are like the most attractive, the most successful from a economic perspective, from like a financial perspective, the most successful from like they have the largest friend group. They look at the top 0.0001% of men who do have a large choice of women who would be willing to be with them, but that is not even close to the majority. Whereas the vast majority of women at any point in time could find a guy who'd be more than happy to have sex with them. Whereas it's not the case in reverse with women, where it's like it's much more difficult to find sex if you're a man. So that's what it means, like that women are the gatekeepers of sex, that like basically any woman at any point in time, if she wanted to, could find sex, whereas men, it's not the case. And I think it's like we could dive into it from an evolutionary perspective, but that's basically how that works.
That's a very good and simplified and accurate explanation by you.
Yeah.
Which wasn't even I was comparing the idea of be attractive to all but choose one to the idea of train consistently, aesthetics and health are tightly aligned until you get to a certain point of lean, like sub 10% or something along those lines.
Right.
But like do the right thing for the right reasons.
Right. Yeah. And you're listening to Eminem? Oh no, you're listening to not listening. You're listening to what are you listening to when you're working out?
Today it was a random mix of like gospel tracks and like YouTube videos and Jon Snow like motivational tracks. And yeah. It ebbs and flows, right? I haven't listened to Eminem. Like that's real high school anger.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have high school anger these days. And like we've talked about, and you can contextualize this for new listeners too, if you like, but running on anger is like, it's not a good long-term strategy. It works. It's effective, but there's better gasoline out there.
It's definitely not a good long-term health strategy. That's for sure. Not good for your heart. Maybe not good for your soul.
Not good for your not good for your physical health or every kind of health. It might be good to acquire material goods and status and worldly things that like we celebrate, but how can you be so sure that that is what you want?
That's the real question.
How is your life going to be different if you go from 5 million to 25 million or 25 million to 100 million?
I think the research is something to the effect, and I know it's relatively old, so we'd probably have to like take into account inflation and basic cost of living now and all of that. But the most recent research I saw that it's to the effect of it's around after like $75,000 a year, happiness does not actually increase after that, which I think now it would have to be different. I really think with cost of living and everything, 75,000 would be a little bit low, to be fair.
I want to say that's minimum 10 years old, if not 15 years old.
Yeah. So I think it would probably be now probably closer to 100, maybe 125 a year would make sense from a happiness, and happiness also being health and the ability to not have money be a constant fear or worry. I think for the majority of people in the US, 75 might be a little bit too low, especially at this point. But it is like after a certain point, you think just more and more and more is going to solve your problems. You think just more money is like, I have more of this, I have more access to that, I have more status here, and it's never ending. It just absolutely never stops.
Yeah. You whatever the number is, like it's important to have enough. And I would imagine there's correlation between happiness, however we want to define it, and dollars up until whatever that number is. And it's going to vary based on cost of living where you are. But then above that, it flattens out. So going from, and who knows if that curve, climbs and then flattens and stays flat, or if it starts to decrease at a certain point. As Puff Daddy and the Family, or no? Who said more money, more problems? Biggie?
I don't know. That's not my
good. I'm glad you
genre.
Don't know either. It's one of those two. Hang on, I gotta see now.
Two white guys search who said mo money, mo problems.
Oh, you know what? It was Puffy and Notorious B.I.G., so I just got them both right. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Dude, I've been getting slammed with ads for a personal trainer mentorship courses, like slammed, just constantly slammed with it.
Do any of them lift?
I don't think any of them actually work out ever. I don't think they've ever worked out once.
Mine don't either, but continue.
I don't think they know how to spell workout. But anyway, I bring that up because I remember this is in relation to how much money you need to be happy and healthy and all of that. I remember early on in like maybe 2013, 2014, when things like these started to pop up a little bit, it was always like how to make like an extra $5,000 a month. I actually remember one that was how to make an extra $1,000 a month. That was it. It was how to make an extra $1,000 a month with online coaching. I vividly remember this. Now I'm seeing people being like, all these courses being like, make an extra $30,000 to $100,000 a month with our fucking online program. It's crazy the leaps that have happened in a relatively short period of time. And when I say the leaps, I don't mean in how much money people are making. I mean, it's crazy the leaps in how much people think they should be making in order to be successful. It's just, and I know for a fact that these people who are advertising, like make an extra 30 to 100 a month. Number one, if these people knew how to do that, then they wouldn't be advertising this fucking program, because they'd be doing that on their own, and they wouldn't be spending this much money on advertising, and they wouldn't be trying to run this whole business with tons of extra expenses and all these employees. If they, and you can do that, to be fair, like there are people you can do that. They're very few and far between. It is possible. It's not necessary, but I guarantee you the people who are saying make an extra 30 to 100 a month in online coaching and selling you their method, they're not doing it. Like they're not.
Correct.
And if they were able to, then they would. And I actually think it's screwing with people's level of happiness and what they believe to be normal, in the same way that people on social media, like, the airbrushed and photoshopped pictures and all of that. It's like, look at this level of it's like, we could look at models or bodybuilders from the 70s or 80s or 90s to now, and it's like, well, of course people have completely different like sets of standards of what they're supposed to look like. Or now it's like people go online and they say like, I look fat, and it's like, man, that's crazy that based on your perception of what health looks like, you think that I would look fat, but that's based on like what you've seen all of these people who are roided out, juiced out, and also photoshopping, editing all their pictures. Now it's warped your perception as to what's normal and health and fitness. I've seen that a lot with the business gurus.
That's an amazing analogy that you just drew. And I have no idea the expectations around physique have changed over the years because physiques have changed.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
You just said. Here, we're not talking about the average amount of monthly income by a personal trainer going from, going up 100x. We're talking about just the internet marketers using that in their copy, and like, oh, this guy said make an extra 1,000 a month, and then he said make an extra 5,000 a month. He said make 10,000 a month. This guy said 40,000 a month. Let's just say they can make an extra 100K a month. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It used to be like an extra, literally 1K a month. That was the name of someone's program. I think it was 1K extra.
Yeah. I'm torn on this because there's so much merit to give people what they want, give people what they want so that you can actually give them what they need, both in fitness coaching and business. But I almost that's one of the reasons I still like our emphasis on coaching and on getting smarter and on having better client communication and on having better understanding of anatomy and technique and all of these things that actually help coaches help their clients, rather than being hyper focused on just the business side of things, which might be more lucrative. But I have to imagine it gets you a more annoying type of coach to work with, like a person with different values than you. Like, don't come to us if you want to make 100,000 next month or this year and you don't have a business right now. Or even if you do and you're like doing decent and you're making a few $1,000s a month, but you want to get to 100K a month, the fitness business mentorship is not the place for you, even though you could, but
no, but don't. I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm only saying you could, and that there have been a couple of people who have, but that's not the intended purpose.
And that's what's another interesting aspect, is that everyone always shows like their quote unquote best success stories. We could show a couple of people who've just outrageously performed to a level that's just I wouldn't have believed it if you had told me when we first started this that we were going to have a couple of people who did this. But the vast majority are succeeding at a much more realistic and sustainable, and I would say happier level that is much more realistic for the vast majority of people to actually achieve. Now, I think from the perspective of, and the reason I'm saying this is because I think this plays out in regard to coaches who are going to be trying to get clients. It's not just about how many clients you can take on and how much money you can make, because if you take on more clients just for the sake of taking on more clients, anybody who will sign on with you and you're making more money, your quality of life goes down dramatically. Your happiness goes down, your health goes down. When we're looking at the mentorship, I think one of the things that I love about it most is that there's nothing about the mentorship that I dread doing. There's no one in the mentorship that I like, oh, I don't want to talk to this person, or I don't want to like interact. Everyone in the mentorship has the same goals, has the same values, has the same morals, has the same ethics. Like everyone there is there because they want to be a great coach who can help people and live a happy, healthy life for themselves, and also and help others achieve the same. If in other groups, the goal is, let's see how much money we can make this month, and then let's jerk each other off about how great it is that like how much money you made. It's nothing about how good of a coach you are or how much success your clients have had. It's nothing about the improvement of the people you're working with. It's all about how much can I brag about how much I've made. And that for us would be poison inside the group. It would be a cancer. It would be awful. So the reason I'm saying this is because if you have this idea like, well, I just want to get more, then you're not going to be as happy doing the job. That the reason you started the job is because you wanted to do it because it would make you happy. It's like it's really, really important not to sacrifice happiness or sacrifice fulfillment or sacrifice the reason you started doing this just for the sake of trying to make more money to impress people who, honestly, they suck anyway. Like they're not people that you'd really want to hang out with, and they're not people that you'd want to like bring home and introduce to your parents, and like you wouldn't want to like hang out with them on a Sunday afternoon. It's like it's not worth it.
FDR's wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, had a quote that I didn't know who said it, and she said it. I looked it up the other day, along the lines of learn from the mistakes of others because life's not long enough to make all of the mistakes yourself, which is essentially, you might not believe what we're saying in that more isn't necessarily always better. And you might want to try to make that mistake yourself. But it's very impressive when people can learn and implement strategies based on the mistakes of others and save themselves the time and pain of having to make those same mistakes themselves. And so, the hamster wheel of dollars isn't worth it.
I'll tell you, I think one of the biggest mistakes that we're seeing, especially the younger generation, which is a little bit weird to say now because I still consider myself the younger generation, but we're not. Like, we're not the younger generation anymore.
We're not.
I think one of the biggest mistakes that is scary to see this younger generation making is this outrageous abuse of drugs in order to get more views, get more likes, get more clients, make more money. And, we've already seen a number of people who are very young pass away in the fitness industry, both men and women, from what would appear to be abuse of drugs. And we can't know because we're not there. We're not the doctor. We didn't do the autopsy, but it would appear as though that was
performance enhancing
drugs. Yeah. I'm not talking about
heroin.
I don't know, heroin or cocaine or whatever, but like if they're using performance enhancing drugs and they're also doing cocaine, that would definitely not be a good idea. But I see so many, and again, it's going back to how things have changed dramatically. And you brought up a great point. Physique standards have changed because physiques have changed. Well, one thing that we've seen over the last forever is like also like strength has changed. I remember watching someone squat 800, 900, 1,000 pounds raw is always pretty fucking insane no matter what. But it's much more common now to see that than it was 7 years ago. 8 years, like that was a once in a lifetime thing to watch that 7, 8, 9 years ago. Now I see people on Instagram doing it pretty frequently. It was insane to see someone at a powerlifting competition deadlift 700 pounds, 800 pounds. That was insane. The entire competition was surrounded. Everyone was watching. Everyone was like holding their breath. Now I see people doing it in their training sessions on a regular basis. And the only reason, it's not because the programming and periodization has gotten better. It's not because their technique has gotten flawless. It's because they are juicing themselves up with so many steroids. And they're so young. They're so young. So they not only are able to recover more quickly because they're young, but also because they have so much fucking performance enhancing drugs in their veins. It's scary. And I think that, I hope not, but I think that that's one of the biggest mistakes of the younger generation right now in the quest for more money, more followers, especially having grown up in the age of social media being the currency, followers being the currency, the status that people are going for. They're doing anything in order to increase it, and they're not understanding that those numbers are really not essential for success, and chasing them at all costs is going to cost them everything.
Some real gems in here. Some real life lessons.
Mike hit me with a great analogy yesterday. I was on my run. I've been calling Mike on my runs, and I've been like mentally.
By the way, Jordan is going to carry the boats. That's why he's running.
I'm not carrying the boats.
You're carrying the boats.
I'm definitely not carrying the boats. Definitely not carrying the boats. I am doing some rucking, some rucking. Got a little weighted vest on. Doing some.
Yeah.
I'm doing a 4 mile run every day with it. It feels good, man.
Imitating what it would be like if you were carrying boats. And by the way, I love that. I'll throw the Goggins, like, there's like a David Goggins embrace masculinity hype song YouTube video where he's shouting who's going to carry the boats, and like there's music blaring, and I love that stuff. So I support you on your journey to carry the boats. You're in the middle of it.
I'm going to say something that, like, and I appreciate and I respect Goggins a lot, but I think he's got some real issues. And like, that's like me saying it from like I hope he's okay part of my soul. I think he's struggling. I think he's suffering deeply. And I don't think people actually understand it. I think people see what he does, like, man, this guy's so hard, and he does some amazing things. He really does some incredible things. And I think he's helped so many people. It's one thing to be able to, like, Robin Williams helped many, many people, and an extraordinary person, but he was suffering very deeply on the inside. I think Goggins is suffering very deeply on the inside, and I hope he's okay, but I also hope that people watching him realize, I think a lot of what he's doing is coming from a place of deep, deep pain. That's like not what you should be striving for, you know?
All right. So you're not going to carry the boats.
I'm not carrying the boats.
You've been calling me on your runs.
Oh yeah. Well, I've been struggling over the last couple of weeks, you know, I have to be very cautious of that because I'm not actually in Israel or Gaza right now, but I have family there, and I've been getting death threats like crazy, and it's been very difficult. I've had probably the most difficult 2 weeks I've had in a long time. And prior to these 2 weeks, I've been praying every morning. I've been rapping tefillin every morning. If you don't know what rapping tefillin is, you can Google it. It's a Jewish thing. But like praying every morning, rapping tefillin every morning. I've been reading the Talmud. I've been reading the Old, like I've been doing a lot of that. It's been wonderful. But then, man, I've been, ever since that happened, my brain has been all over the place, communicating with my family and trying and consuming the news, which has been terrible. But I also have been pulled away from prayer and pulled away from speaking with God, or trying my best to connect with God. And you just hit me with such a great analogy. And it was, I had said something like, it's just really difficult right now to do that. And you pulled out, you're like, well, if when you were powerlifting, if there were some really difficult reps that you had to get through in order to finish the workout, but you wouldn't just stop doing the reps, you wouldn't stop doing the set just because it was a difficult set, you'd keep going, you'd push through those reps. I was like, oh man, Mike just hit me with that. It was well timed and a great analogy from the Vacanti.
Thank you, bro. I learned analogies from the best of them. And that's not to say that one situation is easier or harder than the other. Obviously, like they're not really comparable. One being just on another level. But yeah, difficulty isn't necessarily a sign to stop. It might be a sign to keep going or to lean harder into that difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to? I know you did a whole podcast on the Jordan Syatt mini podcast about the attacks and what's going on in Israel.
We don't need to dive into it here. We if anyone wants to listen to it, they could go listen to that one. I wanted to bring up the analogy that you brought up. I just thought that was worthwhile.
I know you like analogies, my brother.
Big fan. Oh, wow. Man, time flies when you're having fun.
Time really flies.
Do you have a plan for today? Do you have a Q&A? Anything we want to discuss?
Hey, Mike, question for the podcast. Do you need to write articles to build a sustainable business, or would podcasts be enough? If podcasts aren't enough, would YouTube alone be enough? Thank you for everything you do, Maddie.
What's up, Maddie? It's a great question. Do you want to start? You want me to start?
Lead us off.
Okay, so I'll say there's not like one thing you need to do. There's so many different ways to be successful in this industry, and not even just with this industry, like with any industry online, there are so many ways to be successful. There are some people who have been unbelievably successful with just doing Pinterest or just doing Twitter or not doing anything on social media and just doing their email list. Some people have been very successful with just doing Instagram. Some people with just YouTube. Some people a combination of all of it. Some people just podcasts. Some people have just this, just that. What I think is important to discuss is, I'll start by saying this, and you'll understand where I'm going. When you go to jiu-jitsu for the first time, usually the first thing they'll teach you is how to fall. Mike is trying not to laugh. He's like, of course he brings us to fucking jiu-jitsu. One of the first things you learn is how to fall, because let's say, we'll use another example, sailing. If you're ever going to try and learn how to sail, they teach you how to capsize, right? Because if, God forbid, no matter what, like you want to be able to learn how to get safe if the boat flips over, right? Same thing with falling, capsizing, whatever it is. So the reason I bring this up is you have to understand your risk with whatever it is you're doing. And when I look at people who have solely built their business on Instagram, their risk is unbelievably high, because number one, they're completely depending just on that one platform. They're depending on, hopefully their account doesn't get hacked, their account doesn't get taken down, and people might think that would never happen. I see it happen all the time, constantly it happens. It's happened to me with one of my accounts. So from a risk perspective, you shouldn't just do one thing. You want to diversify and have as many people in as many places as possible. So that's number one. From there, in terms of writing articles, you don't need to do that, but it is a really great way to diversify. And it's one of those, I would say, writing articles and having really great long form articles that do well on Google is like a sustainable, slow, steady, sustainable fat loss that you can then transition easily into maintenance. Whereas just doing Instagram or just doing TikTok or just doing these short form pieces of content, that's more like just trying to do rapid fat loss. They both have a time and a place, but the one that's going to allow you to have the most success over the long term with the least amount of risk is going to be the obviously sustainable option. Now, you can use both of them, and I think you should use both of them, but you don't need either one. It's really up to you. I would say podcasting is an amazing option, obviously, but Mike and I, especially with this podcast, considering we post on social media occasionally with this account. If you don't follow us on Instagram or YouTube, please do. But
Personal Trainer Podcast is the handle.
The advantage that Mike and I had going into this podcast is that we had built up audiences prior to starting this podcast. So there were people who already knew who we were and what we did, and who were already asking us about help with their online fitness business before we ever started this podcast. If no one knew who we were and no one knew what we did, and we just started this podcast, there's no way that we would have been able to grow like we have, and our business, the mentorship wouldn't have been able to grow like it has, because finding a new podcast and having someone listen to a new podcast, having never listened to it before, is very, 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 very difficult to do. So having some short form content or even long form website content or YouTube content is very helpful before you do a podcast. So long roundabout way of saying it's important to have it all. I think the best place to start would be long form website articles and some short form, long form website articles, potentially YouTube videos, and then short form content, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, any of that. But the other, and I'll let Mike go after I say this one last thing. The other main thing about long form website articles that goes completely overlooked is, I would think of it like almost like you're doing warm-up sets, or almost like doing the long form website articles is sort of like you're reviewing the program before you actually go to the gym. If you just go to the gym and you haven't reviewed the program yet, and you don't do any warm-up sets, and you just go in cold, and you try and start off doing like your top set of 5 squats at the very beginning, you don't know, no warm-up, you haven't like practiced your technique, you're gonna snap your shit up. If you review the workout beforehand, you understand what you're gonna do, you do some warm-up sets, you get your technique checked, then you go in, all of a sudden like you're gonna feel good, you're gonna go through the workout much better. Writing long-form website articles helps you make better short-form content. When you write these long-form articles, it helps you get warmed up. It helps you get the kinks out, helps you learn how to write better, it helps you learn how to come up with content ideas better. It's not even just from the perspective of getting more clients in Google, figuring out, who your website is and showing it to people on Google. It's also about actually learning how to make better content before you start going 100% in on short-form content.
Boom. I love all of that. Really good points, both about, what writing long form articles does for you in terms of being a better writer, being a better communicator, having more content ideas, and the diversification across platform, which is just going to help you for multiple reasons. The other point I want to make specifically about the types of long form content that you mentioned, Maddie, is website article and YouTube currently have pretty good discoverability. They have good explore page. You could think of it like Instagram's explore page, where on YouTube, it's easy to come across someone who you don't follow, don't subscribe to, don't know, and see their content and then start following them, right? And that can be through shorts, or that can be through a regular YouTube video. Website article, you SEO it well, you title it well, you write a really, really good article, that thing can find its way to page 1 of Google. Jordan and I have both had who knows how many, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions now at this point, over a decade plus, like of new audience find us who didn't know of us, searching through Google, find an article we wrote. Podcast right now has almost no discoverability. Like there's no like podcast feed where you're scrolling through podcast episodes or even just podcasts that you don't know of, and then you see one, and based on a title and a picture, you click on it and invest 30 or 45 or 60 minutes or 2 hours or 3 hours to watch that podcast that you've never heard of. Now, having a podcast and then having micro content and having people find your micro content and then want more and go to the podcast is a viable strategy, but it's nowhere near as effective as YouTube or website article for discoverability for long form content. So we like early on picking a couple platforms and focusing on them rather than doing 9 at once, right? LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram, like being everywhere is really hard when you're first getting started, but picking one short form and one long form is generally a good strategy. For the long form, podcast is going to be the worst of the three. And I agree with Jordan. I think articles is slightly better than YouTube. However, it depends on, like, if you're horrible at writing and you hate writing and simultaneously you I hate that I'm going to say this after how we started this episode, but like, you have an incredible physique, you're really good on camera, you really like being on camera. It's just the truth. Start with YouTube rather than articles, but pick one of those two where you're going to have opportunity for organic reach, for new audience finding you from your long form content. And in the future, if a podcast is something you're really interested in, cool. And I guess I'll finish that by saying this is going to be the best way to help you build your online fitness business. If you are someone who always dreamed of being a podcaster and podcasting was your love and you were doing this for the love of the game and not for building your business and helping people with fitness, do a podcast. But because I know people like that, but for building your online fitness business and helping people with fitness, that's going to be the worst of the three long form content options.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's one from Adrian, and I'm going to shorten the question up a little bit. Adrian, do you need in-person training experience to be successful as an online trainer? I unfortunately don't have any in-person training experience, and I have too many expenses and commitments at home to work at a big box gym or go the route of working for free at a smaller gym. Ideally, I'd like to be a fully online trainer and use training as a side hustle. While I know my experience will be limited because of this, I just want to know if you guys have seen success going this route, or if I will always be a step behind those who started in person and made the switch, leaning on your experience to help me out in knowing how to get back on track. I appreciate the time you took to read this in advance and any insight/pointers. Adrian.
So Mike and I have been like very clear that we think coaching people in person is going to make you a better online coach. And nothing is going to change that. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to pretend like we haven't said that, because it's the truth. Coaching people in person is going to make you a better online coach. With that being said, I know many people who have never coached people in person and have started coaching people online and have helped many people and have built a very successful online coaching business. So do you need it in order to help people? No. Do you need it in order to build a successful online coaching business? No. Would it make you an even better coach if you also did in person? Without question, unequivocally, yes. But with that being said, I mean, think about this. The only way to get better as a coach is to coach people. And so when I first started coaching people in person, I wasn't a good coach and I made mistakes and there were things that I did that were bad. But the only way I got better was from actually just fixing it and learning and coaching more people and understanding from my mistakes. I'm not a doctor by any means, but I believe that I think one of the first rules of I don't know, laws, rules, whatever, is it's something called like do no harm, right? Isn't that like one of the major
First, do no harm?
Yeah, first, do no harm. I think this needs to be the same thing as a coach. The number one thing you need to do is don't hurt people. And the easiest way to do that is to not have them do stupid shit. And coaching people in person can really help you understand what's stupid shit and what's not. But with that being said, there's no reason to be having your people stand on the flat side of a Bosu ball or even the round side of a Bosu ball. Even like there's just no reason to have people online doing that. Most of your clients, unless they're a higher level athlete, should not really be doing crazy jumping or bounding or any of that stuff. You shouldn't be giving them a lot of like overhead squats with a barbell, or like the most important thing you can do, whether you coach people in person or not, is keep them safe. Simple, basic, effective movements, very low impact, because number one, it's going to be safer for them. You are far less likely to do harm, and you're going to learn from it. The more you do, the better you'll get, the more you'll understand. And coaching people in person will give you a better idea of this, but you don't need it in order to help people or in order to build a successful business. You can absolutely still help people and build a very successful business having never done it before. But that doesn't mean that you wouldn't be even better if you also coach people in person.
Well said. There are people, yes, you can do it because there are people who have done it, but they are exceptions to the rule. And the fastest way to get the information that you're going to get from working with people in person is working with people in person. Like, yeah, I don't, what are you looking up?
I was looking up first, do no harm.
And?
It is part of the Hippocratic Oath. And in fact, even though it was first attributed to ancient Greek physician Hippocrates, it isn't a part of the Hippocratic Oath, I guess. The oath reminds clinicians to first consider the possible harm that any intervention might do. This approach to interactions with patients leads to an emphasis on the absence of harm rather than a focus on the creation of health. It's actually, I think, a really important thing to consider when you're writing programs for people, especially workout programs. The most important thing is making sure you will not hurt them. Rather than thinking about how much better it's going to make them, first think about, is this going to hurt them? And once you can eliminate, no, this will not hurt them, this will not hurt them, this will not hurt them, then you can start looking at it from the perspective of how is this going to make them better? Anything that there's like a large risk of actually hurting them, not worth it at all. And I actually really learned this when I was interning at Cressy Performance. It was a really life-changing way for me to look at program design. I was doing it with, professional athletes at Eric Cressy's, mainly baseball players. But his main thing was, he was like, listen, I'm working with these professional athletes with multi-million-dollar contracts. The main thing is I just can't hurt them. If I hurt them, they're screwed. Their career could be screwed. I could be screwed. He's like, my job is to keep them healthy. And this is a coach who's working with some of the greatest baseball players ever, some the best Major League Baseball players in the world. His main goal is just don't hurt them. And if that's the main goal for for professional athletes, then that should absolutely be your main goal just for everyday people who are mothers and fathers and people working everyday lives. Number one, just don't hurt them. And when that becomes your frame of mind for program design, then you just start to laugh at all the stupid shit you see on Instagram, these stupid exercises people are doing. It's just not worth it.
And so then I guess the question then is, if you don't have any in-person experience, how do you learn the specific examples of not hurting them and amongst the other things that you learn in person coaching? And I suppose the answer is something like self-taught research online, a combination of whether it's certifications, whether it's watching videos, whether it's reading from research reviews, whether it's any kind of like self-taught online courses or materials. But that takes time. So if you're in a position where you're going to invest the time to learn these things to do online coaching, I would replace that with, even if it's 1 hour a week at home, at a home gym, working with a family member for once a week for 8 weeks, and then a different family member. So you get the 16-year-old athlete demo, and then you coach your, husband or wife, and then you get the, 57-year-old who has this issue and this issue. And then who knows, maybe you have an elderly neighbor, because I get that time is an issue, and I understand that it's not realistic to get a part-time job at a gym or something along those lines. But I think an hour a week at home working with someone in person is worth 3 to 5 hours a week plus of reading about it or watching videos about it, right? We learn
Even
best
more.
by doing, exactly. 10, 20. So
I mean, I don't even think you can even equivocate. It's like
you're learning something different.
It's a completely different skill.
Yeah.
It's completely and even not even necessarily skill, it's just an understanding of, like, I think one of the biggest things that took me by surprise when I first started coaching people in person was especially when you're a coach, you can do certain things that you take for granted, whether it's a certain level of mobility or a certain level of movement proficiency, a certain level of understanding that you just would never imagine someone else doesn't have. Whether whether it's doing a lateral lunge, you do a lateral lunge, you sit right into it, not really a problem. Why can't someone else do it? Everyone should be able to do this. Well, try coaching someone into a lateral lunge the first time. Like, good fucking luck.
Mhm.
It's one of the most difficult things for people who've never done it before to do, especially if they lack mobility, especially if they're scared of falling backwards, especially if they struggle with balance, especially a lateral lunge is a very difficult thing to teach people. Very difficult. Even like relatively people who move relatively well, even if they have a good level of mobility, it's a very difficult movement pattern to teach. And once you start to understand it and understand what people are struggling with mentally and physically, then it can become easier. But it's not enough to know the technique in order to do it. You have to understand the psychology, the mindset, what people are struggling with, the progressions. And then I remember I have very good hand-eye coordination. And it's weird because I'm the only one in my family who has it. So for me, learning techniques and I could just watch it and replicate it. But when I first started coaching people, and I realized that some people just don't have that at all. At all. I've had clients where I was trying to teach them how to do hip thrusts, and the idea of synchronizing their body movement was like, I can't believe this person can walk properly in everyday life. And it's not to hate on them. It's just like, I was blown away by how difficult some of these things are for people just based on what their genetic inherent skills are. I'm very good with hand-eye coordination. I'm terrible with math. So I'm sure they'd be shocked at how stupid I am with math. But you have to understand that people have different levels of proficiency, and it's not just enough to understand the technique. You have to understand how to communicate, how to empathize, how to break things down for people from all different levels. And there's no book that I know of that can teach this. There's not a single book or resource that can teach this other than you just doing it.
There we have it. Is that in How to Win Friends and Influence People? Is there a rule that talks about admitting your own fault?
Yes. Yeah. There is actually. Yeah.
I like that. I'm terrible at math.
Oh.
It's just
you know who else does that? Is Gary. Gary does that really well. Gary's like, I'm terrible at this. Gary, I think it's you can start to see it would come across as pretentious, or people would be like, it almost looks like you're just talking yourself up. So then you have to step back and say, well, no, this is something that I'm really bad at, just so they know that you're just trying to get your point across. Mm-hmm. You're not trying to prop yourself up. You're trying to get the point across. And sometimes to do that, you need to bring yourself down so people can not look at it from the why is he bragging type of a thing. It's not a brag. It's just trying to get the point across.
See, I never even understood all of that technically, but from being around him so much, and there was a lot of mimicry in there, I would do that without even really knowing what I was doing. It's a good episode.
Yeah, super good episode. Anything else you want to add? We got time.
I think this is a good spot for it. Do you have anything that you want to add? We got time.
I mean, I think the sale's over, right? The
sale's over.
Sale's over. So,
well, yeah. But when's this go live?
It's not really
31st?
sale. It was more like the price is going up.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's it. Congratulations to everyone who got into the mentorship at the lowest price that it will ever be. If you did not get in yet, we'd still love to have you. It's just going to cost a lot more now. And we can't wait to have you in there. It's going to be a blast. But congrats to everyone who got in at the lowest cost. We're very excited to have you. Reminder, as long as you are in the mentorship and you stay active member, then you're never going to have to pay that higher price. So we're very excited to work with you. Very excited to see your businesses grow. Congratulations to everyone who got in. Thank you to everyone who listens. If you're listening, please leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. They help a lot. And have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you soon.
See you next Tuesday. Goodbye.